very good researcher at the international level. Uh, otherwise, otherwise, he is also a very good poet. And I am very proud to welcome him because not only he is very dear friend of mine, but also that he is my proud student, and uh, he has shown a keen interest in organizing this workshop. He is a main person who has arranged the speaker from far off places for us. And I requested him that before we can start with the workshop, we should be discussing about certain theoretical aspects also, which most of us are facing these days, like how to go about the publication in some good care list journal, or what is the meaning of this H index or impact factor, which we are talking about day in, day out. Most of the colleges now are participating in national ranking framework. We are also talking about the Times ranking frameworks, and we are also going through the accreditation process through NAC or other agencies. All agencies these days are uh, looking towards such H index and the research impact factors. Now the things are not as easy as it used to be. So I have requested Professor Gagan that before we can move to the hands-on session, it will be better on our part that if we can build up a theoretical framework. So the first lecture he will be touching about the current issues of the researcher, about the publication and how we can do it. But in majority of the cases, these are going to be hands-on. As you are aware of, we have already made certain teams, and most of you have submitted your team names and the participants. The purpose of making these teams was to encourage collaborative learning and research. In science discipline particularly, there may be more than 100% working on the same paper. They also the so it is a right time here that we can start up with the this collaborative research work. So most of you have already submitted the teaming, but a few are left. I hope that most you will be soon making up your teams and informing us. And I would like to welcome all the faculty members from different colleges. Um, though the majority belong to the Shri Aurobindo College of Commerce and Management, but we are also joined with a few faculty from the GGDST College, Chandigarh, from the PMLSD Business, PMLSD College, Fatehgarh Churiya. We are having a participant from Trinity College, New Delhi also, and there are other faculty member, research scholars also. So I formally extend welcome to all of you, and now I will request Gagan, Professor Gagandeep Sharma, to formally start with the workshop. Professor Gagan, please.
Thank you very much, sir. I hope I am audible enough.
Yes.
Right. Thank you, sir. In fact, for your extremely kind words. It is one of the better qualities of good teachers that they try to give the credit to their students, and that's how we have been getting the credit from yourself all across these 2 decades. I remember my time 2 decades back, exactly 20 years, in fact 21 years back, when we first saw you as a teacher, and then got impressed not only by your teaching but also by your life values, which continue to guide not only me but all of us who were in that batch, including some people from who are settled in industry, some in academia as of now. And those values have played a lead role in shaping whatever we have become, whatever I have become, whatever our friends from the same batch have become. And I think it's very fortunate for the college, for this college, Sri Aurobindo College, that you have a visionary leader in Dr. Ajay Sharma as a principal now. I've been following some of your youth Facebook posts in recent times, Facebook posts of the college as well as of the principal. I've been seeing that the kind of activities that you have organized within short span of time are really amazing and value addition for not only for the college but also for the faculty. Uh, this workshop also promises to be one such workshop. As I said yesterday in the group, in your WhatsApp group, that our idea is not only to do this workshop as a theoretical workshop. The major idea is that we will do it in a hands-on way so that we can end up writing something in good, impactful journals. In doing so, we will have to, the only thing which I would expect from you people is that you are motivated enough to write something worthwhile rather than just learn something worthwhile. What is usual practice for the workshops like this is that people just get into knowing something and then they promise that they'll go back and do something hands-on and then they'll come back, which never happens actually. I have never seen that happen. Maybe someone has seen it happen. That is a fortunate part of that guy. But at least I have not seen that happen, that the theoretical workshops have yielded any practical work. To yield the practical work, it is important that we do the practical workshops. And that's what the discussions with Dr. Ajay and myself were, that we would, if at all we want to do such a workshop, we would want to do it hands-on so that we can bring up something. So let's resolve today that by the time this workshop concludes, we will have something worthwhile to publish. To support this initiative of yours, I would always be here. I'm glad that 3 of my colleagues have also joined this meeting. I'm glad to introduce you to Anshita Yadav, Mansi Jain, Isha Garg, and maybe one more colleague of ours, Ritika Chopra, maybe she'll also join in a while. All of these are published in impactful journals, in the journals which people envy, journals with impact factor of more than 3. As Dr. Ajay rightly said, that I'll just introduce you to what are these impact factors and what all those things are. Today's first session primarily dedicates to that. So this is a kind of a pre-note to the workshop, and now I think I can start with the presentation. But if there is any further, maybe some input, some guideline from your end, I am receptive to that. Sir, anything that you want to say? Can we start? I also need your permission to begin with the presentation on the first topic. Okay, I've got his text message to begin. Okay, so let's now. Just bear with me for a second so that I can go to the presentation mode. I hope you can see my presentation. Is it visible to all of you, and am I audible to all of you right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So friends, this is about impactful publishing and institution ranking frameworks. And we need to understand the what, why, and how of it. As Sir rightly mentioned, these days it's a challenge of 2 sorts for all of us. One, the challenge is that we need to see how our institution can progress, and 2, we need to see how we can progress. But this is a major challenge which most of the faculty are finding these days. In some cases, institutions are progressing, but the individuals are not. In some other cases, individuals are progressing, but the institutions are not. So while it is important for individuals as well as institutions to progress and go ahead, it is equally important for the institutions to value those individuals who are moving, who are doing well. For example, let me take an example. For example, one friend of mine who's currently an assistant professor with Goa Institute of Management. He has published in all the top journals of the world. He has published in A star more than 5 papers, in A more than 5 papers, and countless papers in other good journals. But still, he is at the level of assistant professor. The institution is not rewarding. What happens is that once an individual, such an individual quits the institution, it becomes a problem for the institution also. So what I want to convey to you is that institutional vis-a-vis individual performance are like the ovals that I have made on the bottom of the screen, if you can have a look. Institutional performance is a whole which comprises of the individual performance. And there are plenty of individuals. So individuals' performance and institutional performance go hand in hand. It doesn't happen this way that the individual can grow and the institution may not. If the individual grows, the institution ought to grow, and vice versa. If my institution grows, I also grow. Let me give you some indications from the research angle before moving on. I am editing some journals for Elsevier as of now. What do we usually get in the training as editor is that you have to see the institution's rank, the institution from where the individual comes. So at times, some of you who are doing research may recall that your good papers may also not click at times. While people who are from maybe some other institutions, their average papers may click. Why does this happen? Why do their papers get accepted even when they are average papers, and your papers or our papers don't get accepted even when those are extraordinary ones? Reason is that the editors look at the institutional rankings. Where is this university ranked? If this university is ranked on top or good as a good university, then this creates a perception in the minds of the editor that yes, I can go ahead and I can send this paper, I can clear the desk of this paper and send it for further review. This may sound very irrational, but this is true. I can tell you from my own experience as an editor. We are told to go this way, to check the institutional rankings before even sending the paper for review. Leave aside accepting, but before even sending the paper for review. If the institution is not good or is not rightly ranked, they perceive that the author is also not good. So this is all about perception, but the perception stems from institutional rankings, institutional performances. Now, who makes the institution? How does the institutional ranking improve? This is very important for us to understand. That's why I thought that I would share with you something like this. So what makes an institution? Or what makes the ranking of the institution? These are the 5 parameters which particularly National Institutional Ranking Framework, which is one of the most important ranking frameworks in India, NIRF. It bases its institutional ranking on these 5 things: teaching, learning resources, research and professional practice, graduation outcomes, outreach and inclusivity, and peer perception. Now, if you look at these, in fact, I would want you to talk about it. Please go through this particular page, and I would like to hear from you. What are the areas where you think if you improve your individual performance, you can contribute to any of these parameters? Can you have a look at the green as well as the white boxes? Think about it. and then speak up. What exactly do you think, if your performance improves as an individual, where in the institutional performance can you contribute? Please unmute your mic, those of you who want to, who have some idea about it. Please unmute your mic and speak up. Where exactly do you think that improvement in an individual's performance will contribute to the institutional performance out of these parameters?
Can you please show the page again? It is not visible.
What is not visible?
And that page, the institutional NIRF page, na?
Is it visible now?
Yeah, it is visible.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Good morning. Good morning, Gagan sir. This is Professor Kamaljeet from Aurobindo College. I think so. Faculty qualification experience and the research and professional practices. I think this can be worked on.
So you are saying on the first teaching learning resources, you are saying the third point, faculty qualifications and experience.
And the research and professional practices, the points can be covered.
All the 4 points, right? No denying the fact. That's perfectly fine. Anything else?
No, sir. This is from my side, sir.
Right. Anyone else who has some more idea?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
This is Professor Jasprit from Aurobindo College, Ludhiana.
Right. Go ahead, Jasprit.
Sir, I second Professor Kabaljeet, what he said. Of course, teaching, learning resources and research and professional practices we can very well work upon. If we work in a collaborative manner, it would be much beneficial. Other than that, over the period of time, the outreach and this inclusivity could also be worked upon over the period of time, right? And that is because
which part in outreach and inclusivity?
Sir, it could be like economically and socially challenged students or facilities for physically challenged students, right? Although all the colleges have these facilities, but over the period of time, it can be further improved upon.
Right.
So this was from my side. And of course, first two parameters are, yes, in a collaborative manner, especially the teaching learning resources can be taken to the new heights.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello. Sir, myself Amita from Pandit Mohan LST College. I agree with the research part also, but I also consider the financial support should be also there in the first criteria. That if we have the financial resources, so we can improve many things in our institutions.
So you mean the financial resources from your employer or what?
Sir, from our institution side, and in any way, means we can improve our resources. So that if we improve our resources, then only we can facilitate, give different facilities to our students. As we are in the digital world, and we all processes going through the online process. For that, we require our financial status also high.
All right. Thank you. So, friends, I appreciate all the three answers. Let me reflect upon it a little more. My question and my thesis at this juncture is that if my performance as an individual improve, my institution's ranking can also improve. How? If I perform better, of course, as the first respondent said, that faculty qualification and experience would improve. Not only that, the student strength would improve, because if the faculty is better, so of course the student strength would be better in terms of both quantity as well as quality. So clearly what we can see in the teaching learning as a first step is that point number 1.1 and 1.3 would improve. Okay, about 2, yes. So if I publish in good, if I publish, the 2.1 would improve. If I publish in good journals, 2.2 would improve. If I publish in good journals and then something organic comes out, 2.3, which is IPR and patents, that would improve. And of course, if that happens, I would be able to get the good projects from the funding agencies. For example, you may get the projects from UGC, you may get projects from ICSSR, you may get projects from external bodies, from international bodies. If that happens, so if 2.4 happens, 1.4 would happen. Then you would not be dependent only upon the financial resources of your employer. You would generate the financial resources for yourselves. If you get fundings, then you have the financial resources, and of course your employer would be liberal enough to let you utilize this to benefit not only your research, but also by your research to benefit the society at large. So when you benefit the society at large through this, then you go to 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, there you can improve. But in addition to that, the most important thing that your individual performance improvement would do is to improve 4.5 and 5.1. These are the most important parameters for you. For the institution, of course, the first block is more important, but at the same time, for the individual, it is 4.5 and 5.1 which are more important, because then the perception of your institution would improve. And if the perception of your institution improves, as I said, that would reflect upon your performance, that would help your performance in the times to come. You would be able to not only succeed in getting the projects, because if the project goes from Punjab University, vis-a-vis if a project goes from Punjabi University, nothing against any particular university, but in the rankings we know Punjab University is higher than the Punjabi University. So other things remaining the same, the first thing which comes to the mind of the evaluator is that Punjab University has a good reputation, so it has a good ranking, so let me prioritize, let me give higher priority to Punjab University than Punjabi University. Similarly, if there are other universities which are there, so people may look at the NAC rankings, the NIRF ranking, and the public perception which can be built. So in this way, the institutional ranking is seen. I'm showing you some examples. For example, have a look at this. These are the rankings of the colleges in India. Top 5 colleges. Have a look at the top 5 colleges. In fact, top 6 colleges. The first college is Miranda House. See the performance of Miranda House. If I ask, say, Aurobindo people to strategically, to prepare a strategy how to beat this Miranda House, where do you think can you do better than them? See their overall score. I hope you can see the overall score in the second last column, second last from the right. Score. Their score is 73.72. But have a look at their scores in TLR, RPC, GO, OI, perception. If I give you a strategic objective that you have to prepare a strategy to beat Miranda House, and suppose you are Hindu College. You are the strategic consultant of Hindu College, which is number 2, and they want to beat Miranda House. What can they do? Please unmute those of you who want to respond to this. Please make it a point that you have to mute and unmute quite often.
So definitely they will improve their, Hindu college will improve their first and second aspect, TLR and RPC, if they want to improve then Miranda House.
Right.
I think so.
Right. See, improving TLR from 73% would be such a difficult thing, no? To what extent would they take it? 75? Improving GEO would be so very difficult. They already have 89. Graduation outcomes are 89 or nearly 90%. OI is already 75. Perception is already 71. What is simple to improve is RPC. They are only scoring 26. This is so very easy. What is RPC? Now let's get back. Research and professional practice. And this is where, if you recall, and if you try to contextualize the things, Dr. Ajay would appreciate the fact, and others of you who are following the union activities which are happening in the college, not only for the Punjab and Chandigarh college teachers, but also for the college teachers across the country. The challenge is that they do not have enough time. The college teachers do not have enough time for research and professional practices. That's why the college teachers are not able to do good research. And that's why, if you look at the top college, the second college, if you look at their score in terms of RPC, it is very bad. 39% and 26%, which is nothing. That's why this is important for us to visualize and realize that the struggle of the college teachers is much different than the struggle of the university teachers. I have enough time. If my ranking is done in this way, if my university is ranked this way, I'm sure I'll tell you that our RPC would be higher than 90%. Why? Because the universities have a different kind of a work system. And the colleges have a different kind of a work system. And the activities in which you all are involved, I'm sure you can appreciate the fact. But at the same time, so within the limitations, those are our limitations. But within those limitations, how can we improve the research and professional practice? So now this is also my input to you, because see, RPC in parentheses, it is written 100, which means the weightage is 100. So weightage is equal to all of those. And that's how we make 73.72, because the weightage remains the same. So in that way, it is so very, it is so very complicated an aspect for the college teachers to improve their research and professional practice. But still, if we want to do it, how can we do it? Now the answer is here. Answer is that most of the challenge in research, in publishing for good journals and publishing in good numbers, both quantity as well as quality, the major challenge is collection of the data. I am sure those of you who have done their PhD would appreciate that the biggest challenge that you faced was when you were collecting the data. To collect the data was one of the biggest challenges. It was on our mind also when we were planning this workshop. It was on our mind also. Sir and I discussed that should we do something for how should we do it so that we are able to improve the RPC, not only of the institution, but also of the individuals. So the way out is that to try and base most of your researches on secondary data. There is so much of secondary data which is available. The only thing is that you should make sense of that secondary data. Not all can take advantage of that. For example, let me take some cases. Let me take an example. These days we are doing this workshop from our homes because of the pandemic of COVID-19. Now, some data about COVID-19 is available, and journals are welcoming the research around COVID-19 with both hands. What should we do? One may argue, what should we do? We are social scientists. How can we contribute to the research on COVID-19? So here is one idea. You know, Ludhiana is one of the more polluted cities of India. Delhi is among the most polluted cities of India. So is pollution somehow linked to the cases of COVID-19? You can get the daily data of pollution from secondary sources. You can get the daily data of COVID-19 cases from secondary sources. You don't have to collect anything afresh. Everything is available. You only have to bring it together, form a research question, and then publish. And if you do that, you can easily publish in journals with very high impact factors and thereby improving your RPC within limited time. But on the other hand, if you take a, say, for example, I take a research question that I would survey the patients of COVID-19, and from there I would write a paper. So surveying them, writing a paper about them, you know how difficult it is going to be, no? How time consuming it is going to be. So how would a college teacher get a time for the research and professional practice improvement, the score improvement for himself or for the institution? That's just going to be a very Herculean task. So to make things simpler, we have to think more about how to go about it, or what to do. In fact, the challenge is that we do not put much effort in what to do. We take it for granted. For example, we may take it for granted that the most important tool that is, or the most relevant tool in social sciences these days is ABC. For example, people are crazy about structural equation modeling these days. One may argue that SCM is the most relevant tool, and I would use SCM. Now, on what will you use SCM? On the primary data. Who will collect the primary data? I will collect. Do you have enough time from your classes, from everything, all your responsibilities? Do you have enough time to collect that much of primary data? On the other hand, if you focus on what to do, then then what would you do? You would probably look at what the journals are publishing, what the journals are wanting. So journals are also wanting studies. So many studies are being published these days, which are based on the secondary data. So let us find out what is the problem where I can use the secondary data. What is the research problem around which I can use the secondary data? So in that way, for example, the one that I said, COVID-19 and pollution, can you build a link? Another one, COVID-19 and temperature. People have been saying that the high temperature leads to reduction in the transmission of the virus. Is it true? Let us take the data from Africa, let us take the data from Europe, let us take the data from India and see what was the temperature on a given day and how many cases were reported. We can take the data for at least for February, March, April, 3 months. Daily data is available. The only thing is to contextualize. The data is available at the click of a button. By evening, I'm sure you can collect the data. And tomorrow I can teach you how to analyze the data. Day after tomorrow, someone can come and teach you how to write the paper around that. And that's it. So your RPC score improves and also their RPC score improves. But why these colleges, the first and second college, have not been able to score on RPC? The college which thinks, the institution which thinks a little differently, scores extremely high on this. Look at the third college, Presidency College, Chennai. Look at their RPC score, 98%. Ooh, so it just reflects the point that I was telling you. Now you try to find out the research papers which Presidency College teachers have written. You would find that around 90% of those are based on secondary data. That's a different story altogether, that they have not scored that high in GO, OI, and perception. Of course, things take time, but at the same time, I'm just telling you that if if your leadership of the college, you have a visionary leadership now, if the leadership is taking care of point number 3, 4, and 5, because those are generally the strategic points like graduation outcomes, outreach and inclusivity, peer perception. These are the things which your leadership will take care of. You can focus on point number 2. There is no reason why you can't improve point number 1 and why you can't score strategically very high in the NIRF. This is one part I wanted to share about the institutional ranking parameters. I have said a lot of things about the individual rankings also here. So I'll stop for a minute and I would wait for you to question if you have any questions or clarifications if you seek, or if you have. I even welcome you if you have some inputs to further the points that I just said.
Sir, can you clarify that how these points are being calculated? Like out of 100, how this 77.45 is being calculated? Please tell us.
So this is what it is. Teaching learning resources, there are 4 parameters. If you look at the student strength, if you look at the faculty student ratio, if you look at the faculty qualifications and experience, right? You can go to the website of National Institutional Ranking Framework. You will get almost all the details. Here I have said, taken the details of only first 3 colleges. You can go to, right? For example, if you see there is a PDF icon here.
Yes, sir.
In Mirinda House, after close, there is a PDF icon. If you click there, you will get the report of the Mirinda House College. And you would then see what exactly have they submitted.
Right, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good morning, sir. This is Mahesh from Aurobindo College. So my understanding so far is this research publications, research practices, research learning and professional practices. This must have some spillover effect to the other things, but particularly this graduation outcome. But I'm a little surprised to see here in Presidency College, despite having such a high RPC, their graduation outcome score is pretty low, 46.4. What's your view, sir, on that? Is it a temporary thing, or ultimately RPC is going to benefit in later on in or long term in GEO?
Yeah. So Mahesh, very relevant question, very relevant. I'm thankful to you that you asked this. I want you to go back to this oval on the top, on the bottom right, institutional and individual performances. The challenge is that usually people assume that my performance and my institution's performance are contradictory to each other. Those happen at the cost of each other. So usually professors have been under the impression and have been probably thinking this way, that if their RP improves, if they are to improve their RP, probably they have to reduce the number of classes, or they have to, this has to happen at the number of classes that they take, or at the level, at the quality of classes that they take, or at the university examination duties that they do, or guiding the PhD students, or things like that. So RP will happen at the cost of graduation outcome is a very common perception and assumption, which is not true. At least I can tell you from my own personal experience, and good teachers would tell you. Good researchers are not necessarily good teachers, but mind you, the ones who are really good researchers, they are exceptionally good teachers. Take the case of Amartya Sen, take the case of Abhijit Banerjee, take the case of Raghuram Rajan. They are exceptionally good researchers and exceptionally good teachers. Averagely good researcher may not be, one can argue that, okay, I would need the time to go and do my research, to collect my data, to do blah, 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 at the cost, and therefore I would not be able to take up the classes, I would not be able to perform the university examination duties, or my students will not be able to score high in university examinations, which is actually not the case. So if I take, I'm taking a class with you on institutional ranking and all that, right? If I am an average researcher, or if I am a good researcher, I would be able to present to you those things which matter in a very short span of time. only if I know the reality, if I know the research practice, if I know, if I've done my own research on primary as well as secondary data, then only I will be able to tell you that, okay, research on secondary data is less time consuming and you should go for this. Otherwise, I will only be shooting in the dark, which would not help any cause. So good researcher, one who has done something practical, would also be a good teacher. And therefore, I believe that 2 and 3 are positively correlated, though the empirical evidence, if you look at the evidence of the 3 cases here, suggests that if 2 goes down, 3 goes up, and vice versa. But I believe that there is something which needs to be told to these teachers of these colleges, and something where they need to go as per the strategy. As of now, they are just focusing on how to do. So they know how to teach, and they're teaching, they're putting their best efforts in teaching. On the other hand, probably the teachers of the Presidency College, they are more concerned and they know how to research, so they are putting in their efforts for research, which they are doing in a nice way. But at the same time, the graduation outcomes are suffering. So for an institution like yours, for institutions like ours, we need to think out of the box and understand that RPC and GEO have a positive correlation among each other. And if I improve, if I'm actually doing some research, my graduation outcome would also improve. For example, if I am a teacher of accounting, say, so I would research on around accounting, and why can't I teach what I have researched into my class? Right? So this much in response of Mahesh's question, but if there are some more questions, I would be glad to answer.
I want to contribute from there. Am I audible?
Your voice is not very clear, at least to me.
Am I audible?
This is better.
Okay. So if we look at the parameters for the Miranda House, then we can see that their TLR is 77.45. So basically, what I could make it out, the reason is most of the students, they are from the outside states. That could be one. And another reason could be most of the students are being selected for higher education in institutes of repute. So that could be probably the most important reason their TLR is very high. So is it true?
Yeah, absolutely. This is absolutely true. And as someone was saying, there is a spillover effect.
Yeah.
There is a spillover effect, because if your research and professional practice improves, I believe your graduation outcomes improve. And if your graduation outcomes improve, your peer perception improves. And if your peer perception improves, your teaching and learning resources improve.
Okay.
Because let me tell you, I was teaching at around 10 years back, in fact, no, around 13, 14 years back, I was teaching at Guru Nanak National College, Doraha. Our principal was Principal Jaswant Singh Gill. In one of our meetings with him, he told that the real ranking, at that point in time, NAC was in the talks. It was just, those were the initial days of NAC rankings. So in a meeting, he said that the real ranking is done by the students, is done by the parents of the students. It is on this background that now in the outreach and inclusivity, we have 100 marks, where almost everything is done based on what you are doing for the people, for the students. So perception ranking is also there. So in that way, if your performance, academic performance improves, your peer perception improves. If your peer perception improves, your student strength improves. And once you have good students coming in, your role as an institution, your role as a teacher diminishes that much. You only have to make sure that you don't stop their progress. Right? So in that way, there is a spillover effect, yes.
Fine, sir. There is one more query. If we talk about this outreach and inclusiveness or inclusivity, there is a second parameter of percentage of women. So
there is still some issue with your audio, probably.
Okay, sir. If I talk about 4.2, which is percentage of women, then what does it include? I mean, if there is some women college or women institution So in that institution, the faculty, most of the time, faculty is also female faculty. So in that case, they'll be scoring more in this.
Kind of percentage of women would be higher, but at the same time, if you select, for example, only women, then there is something where you will have to pay, because there are both men and women who are performing good. So in that way, I believe you will have to suffer at some point in time by itself. For example, right? For example, in the student strength or in the university examination. So take the opposite case to understand this. If you admit only men, most of the positions in the university are grabbed by the by the women. We are seeing that, right? But on the other hand, a number of sports positions are currently being grabbed by the men. So that way you would perform high on the graduation outcomes, but then you would perform a little low on the perception ranking because you're students from or right. So I hope you understand that there is opportunity cost of that. But yeah, percentage of women, if that increases, if you are a women-only college, then your percentage of women score would be higher for sure.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, I would like to ask, how would these institutional ranking parameters would change with digitization? Since of now we are at the stage of half of education at digital level and half of at the physical level. But how would these parameters change with complete digitization of education level?
So I counter question you to answer the same question on your own thinking. How do you think that will happen?
I think like the student strength and faculty student ratio in in the first of the paragraphs would not matter at all. But yes, faculty qualifications and experience do matter.
Right.
And financial resources and their utilization, yes, they are of now at most important. And research professional practices, yes, they are important. But I would like to know the major amount of change that will happen in these parameters with digitization.
Yeah. Of course. And see, there are two important things I would like to say. One is the social media. Yes. Digitization is the strength of the social media. You see how things become viral these days, no?
Yes, word of mouth.
So that way you are hitting the perception right away and so very fast. So your all fifth column is dependent upon the social media, your digital presence, all of those things. Therefore, one is there, one impact is there. 2 is on 4.5. 3, it is on the whole 3.1 and 3.2. How many, what is your score in the university examinations, etc. 4, it is also in 2.1, 2.2, because you would be able to, otherwise, when I was doing my MPhil and my PhD, I had to collect the data manually. But now your data can be collected online. So in that way, you can always help in 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4. But most importantly, there are lessons which we are learning. For example, COVID-19 and isolation and social distancing is teaching us a lot of lessons. It is teaching us, it is bringing us to the power of digitalization. For example, we are doing this workshop online. Who would have thought that we will do this workshop online 1 year back? Who would have thought about that? If you can do it necessity is the mother of invention, we say. So if you can do it today, why can't we do it in ordinary times for your students? To improve your students' level of understanding, this kind of digital activities should be used. If today we can bring in people from Griffith University, Australia, we can bring in people from London, from the University of Lincoln, London, why can't we bring those people in ordinary times? Because we have not realized the power of digitalization. So if your college, for example, makes it a point that you will organize such programs for your students every week or every month or every 2 months, 6 months, whatever, that would definitely improve your graduation outcomes as well. So in this way, digitization has a role to play not only in one aspect of it, but in more than one aspects. The only thing is, again, as I said, visionary leadership and out of the box thinking.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, if there is any other point, otherwise we'll move on to the individual parameters now. Now, I think we can move on to the individual ranking parameters now. So guys, here, have a look at 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4. If possible for you, please note those down, 2.1, 2, 3, and 4. Because our individual performance is largely going to be focused around this. So 2.1 is combined metric for publications, combined metric for quality of publications, IPR and patents, footprints of projects and professional practice. Now here, a lot of you are confused, I'm sure are confused, because I know people in my university are also confused, and we the teachers are alike in a lot of aspects. People are confused about the UGC CARE list of journals. Is that your confusion as well?
Yes, sir.
So my first idea is about the UGC CARE list, which I want to share with you. The best way to deal with UGC CARE list is to ignore it altogether. As I said, there are 3-4 colleagues of mine here in this chat, in this meeting. If you ask them, they would tell you that they have never seen the UGC CARE list. Still, all their publications are in the UGC CARE list. How come? Because we need to keep a standard which is higher than that. What is that standard? You have to make it a point that you would not publish anywhere else than the international citation databases. If you make it a point that you would publish only in the journals which are ranked in, which are listed in the international citation databases, then UGC CARE's list is divided into 2 points. Point 1 says journals which are indexed in Scopus. So all the journals which are indexed in Scopus are part of UGC CARE list. The second point of UGC CARE list says that there are some more journals which they have listed. So if I am publishing in Scopus, by default, I am publishing in the UGC CARE list. There is no question of me going out. Therefore, it's important for you to focus on the international citation databases. Now, what are the international citation databases? There are 2 international citation databases. Please understand. There is no third international citation database. There are only 2 international citation databases. One is Web of Science. 2 is Scopus. I'll talk about it in detail in the later slide, but as of now, please understand that there are 2 international citation databases. One is Web of Science, the other one is Scopus. So if you publish there, that's what matters. If you publish anywhere else, it doesn't matter. 2, I hope you recall 2.2 from the earlier point, from the earlier slide, which was about good publications. So publications with rankings. What are the rankings? three important rankings for all of you, because I assume all of you are the social scientists. That's why I'm saying these three: ABDC, ABS, and FT50. So on one, we are not compromising at all. If possible, let's go with two also, if possible, but not essential. One is not to be missed. One is a must. So how many publications you have in one means international citation databases. How many publications you have in with rankings which are ranked, and what are your citations leading to your H index? H index. What is the H index? H index is based on the citations. How many people are citing your work? I hope you are aware of the difference between citations and references. Are you? Or do you want me to clarify that? Citations and references. Are you?
Kindly clarify.
I'm sorry, I didn't get you.
Kindly clarify that also.
Okay. So citation is something which you are doing within the text. Let me take you to an example. So I'm stopping to share this. I'll come back here, but in the meantime, I'm going somewhere else and trying to show you something. I hope you can see this. Can you see my screen right now? Can you see my screen right now?
No, sir.
No, you're not able to see the screen.
No, sir.
Okay, okay. I hope you can see my screen right now. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
What are you seeing on the screen? What are you seeing on the screen?
It's a research paper.
Research paper, right. So guys, have a look here. I'm saying, the first sentence I'm saying, attaining happiness is the ultimate goal of human beings. 1 and 2. One is, someone has said it, so I am citing. What am I citing? One is the citation that I'm making. This is my citation. So when I'm saying something within the text, this is a citation. But when I click this, it takes me here. This is my reference. So this is the reference, while the previous one within the text was the citation. Let me show you one more. Have a look at this. Now here, we are saying something, and within the text in the bracket I am citing. This is the citation. But when I click here, this is my reference. So in the references, it is the reference. Citation is the brief of that. When we say a brief about any research, that is our citation. But when we go into the detail and write the entire details of those are the references. So these are the citations. Economies are adopting renewable energy strategies to mitigate CO2 emission effect on the environment. these are 1, 2, 3, 4. These are my 4 citations, which I have detailed in the references. Is that clear to you now? Is that clear to you now?
Yes, sir.
Right. So I am now going back to the presentation. So how many times my paper has been cited? How many citations do I have? Is important. Once you achieve 1 and 2, the most important thing is how many citations do you have? So for example, I'm going back to my practical example where I was telling you that I am editor with some of the Elsevier journals. So what do we do when we have to send a paper for review? We automatically get the H index of the people. So we do not see anything else. How many publications does he have? How many publications in ABDC does he have? We only consider the H index of the individual. Now, what is the H index? Hirsche developed it. What is this index? For example, say I have 10 papers. I have published 10 papers. One paper of mine has got 10 references. Another paper has got 9 references. Another paper 8 references. Another paper 7 references. Another paper 6 references. Another paper 5 references. Another paper 4 references. So what is H index? H index is how many papers of yours have got that many references. For example, if one paper of mine has got 1 citation and no other paper has got any citation, my H index would be 1. If I have 2 papers have got citations, one paper has got 1 citation, the other paper has got 2 citations, my H index would still be 1. If both my papers have got 2 citations each, then 2 papers, 2 citations each. It means my H index is 2. If I have got 3 papers with minimum 3 citations each, H index is 3. So the citations that I've got for those many papers are equivalent to the number of papers. That is called Hirsche index. That is called H index. Is that understood now? What do we understand by the H index? Or do you want a little more clarity? Are you okay with the H index? Do you understand what is H index now? Oops.
Repeat, sir. Fine, sir.
When you guys write in the chat, that doesn't help me because I have to come back to the chat. I'm now seeing that a lot of people have said something in the chat, but when something is asked, please make it a point that you unmute yourselves and then speak up. Okay, I can now see that you want me to repeat and make it a little more clear. So H index is the index which exhibits the citations of yours, but it only takes that many citations which are equivalent to the number of papers having that many citations. So it is a kind of a matrix. It's a kind of a matrix. For example, in my case, I have 6 papers which have got 6 or more citations in Scopus. So my H index is 6. If another paper of mine gets 6 citations, my H index will still remain 6. But if 7 of my papers get 7 or more citations, then my H index will improve to 7. If 8 of my papers get 8 or more citations, then my H index will move forward to 8. So H index is tied to two things. One, the number of papers having that many citations. I hope it is clear now.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Right. So I'm now moving forward, and we are only going to elaborate a little bit more on these citation databases. Have a look here. So I said international citation databases. What are the international citation databases? There are two international citation databases, I already told you. Web of Science and Scopus. I am also sure that you have heard about impact factor. And I am also sure that you have heard about kind of hereditary impact factors. A lot of journals which are not Web of Science journals claim they have global impact factor, ABC impact factor of as high as 6, as high as 3, which is not true. They do not have any impact factor on Web of Science. They are just, someone else has opened a shop which is providing impact factors, and they are just claiming themselves to be having the impact factors. And most of us who do not know the reality behind what are the impact factors, we kind of get driven away by that. But in reality, there are two citation databases. One is Web of Science and the other one is Scopus. Web of Science is further classified into 4. 3 were already there, and the 4th one has recently been added. One is Science Citation Index Expanded. So the journals which are pertaining to science disciplines and are really good journals. So I'll define, in a while I'll define what is understood by good journal. Is a good journal is listed into the Science Citation Index Expanded, which is called SCIE. Earlier it was called SCI only, SCI, Science Citation Index. But now it has been renamed as Science Citation Index Expanded. The social science journals, which are good journals, are included in SSCI, Social Science Citation Index. Arts and humanities journals are included in Arts and Humanities Citation Index. All these three, the journals which are indexed in any of the above three, have impact factors. How much impact factor do they have may vary. They may have 0.1, they may have 1, they may have 10, they may have 20, they may have anything. But all the journals which are indexed in Science Citation Index Expanded, Social Science Citation Index, and Arts and Humanities Citation Index are the ones which have impact factors. Web of Science has a new index which it just recently created, Emerging Sources Citation Index, where it is listing those journals which are not as good. Again, I'll define the term good for you. Which are not as good as SSCI, because Emerging Sources Citation Index is also a social sciences index. So journals which are not as good as SSCI, but are good, those have been included in the Emerging Sources Citation Index. My asterisk here means that ESCI journals do not have an impact factor as of now. One is Web of Science, the other international citation database is Scopus. Scopus journals which are listed on Scopus, they have a side score. Like the journals which are indexed in Web of Science have an impact factor, journals which are indexed in Scopus have a side score. Side score can be 0.1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 20, 50, whatever. But Scopus also qualifies the journals in different quartiles. So the best journals it qualifies as Q1, the second best quartile. So it has divided the entire population of the journals which are indexed in Scopus into 4 quartiles, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. Q1 being the top and Q4 being the bottom. Now comes a question: how do we understand whether the journal is a good journal, or what makes a good journal? A good journal is determined by the citations that it earns. I hope you recall from my previous, when I showed you my paper and showed you what is a citation. So how many citations do you have determines how good your journal is. So H-index, we just spoke about the H-index of individuals. Similarly, H-index of journals is also calculated. The journal with better H-index is known to be a better journal. Is that clear to you? Are you okay with this part? What is a Web of Science and what is Scopus? Are you okay with this? What is impact factor?
Yes, sir. Sir, can you please tell the difference between impact factor and site score? Is there any difference between two of Web of Science and Scopus, because both are differently mentioned?
Yeah. So difference is the same as if your college has been accredited by NIRF and NAC. NAC has given its own ranking and NIRF has given its own ranking. So these are two different bodies.
Okay, sir. Okay,
but
thank you.
most of the journals which are in Scopus are also in Web of Science, and most of the journals which are in Web of Science are also in Scopus. There is overlap. Yeah. Any other questions so far? Because I want to show you something practical after this, but any other questions so far? Okay, now let me show you these three websites: Web of Science, Scopus, and another one. I want to show you three websites. So I'm stopping to share as of now. Coming back here.
Excuse me, sir.
Right. I hope you can see this. Can you see my screen now?
No, sir.
Okay. Can you see it now? Can you see my screen now?
No, sir.
Now?
Yes, it's visible, sir.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
you please come with me. Go to this website, webofknowledge.com. Webofknowledge.com. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So I am not sure if you have a login on this website, but just in case you have a login, I have a login, for example. So I am logging in to my page. I am going to my page. This is my page. Right. Now here, there is a Web of Science core collection. So here, I can search something. Say, for example, I want to search papers around COVID-19.
Sir, repeat. There is a noise.
Acha. So suppose I want to search something. I want to search a paper. I'm sure ये page आपके computers पे नहीं आया होगा because you have not logged in, right? Are you able to reach this page?
Web of Science page is shown on the screen.
Webofknowledge.com.
Yes, sir.
Can you see the same page on your logins also? Anyhow, please follow me here. Whatever I am doing, you can see my screen, so that's okay. So I am searching, I want to search COVID-19 related papers. So I go to COVID, I write here COVID-19. Where do I want to search? I want to search in the title of the paper. So I click on the title and then I click on search. When I click on search, I get 7 results. I get 7 results. What are those 7? 7 papers have been published which have name COVID-19 within the titles. COVID-19 impact on nuclear medicine, an Australian perspective, cancer strategy and COVID-19, COVID-19 prevention and care, right? So which journal? These are the journals. This is the name of the journal. 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 For example, when I go here, so it takes me to all this kind of search. These are the journals which are cited, which are indexed in the website. Right? I go back. So I'm now writing the name of one of my papers. Can I sustain my happiness? This is the title of a paper. I want to search it. It shows me this paper. Can I sustain my happiness? This paper is there. Means this paper is listed in the Web of Science directory. Right, it is listed in the Web of Science directory. When I click here, it gives me the details of it. So if my paper is not listed on the Web of Science directory, it would not be shown in this search. And most of the literature, most of the good researchers, they only search their literature from the Web of Science website. So if my paper is published in a journal which is not indexed here, that would not bring me the citation because people will not read it. Therefore, in order to enable that my paper is being read widely, it is important for me to publish only in the journals which are listed on Web of Science. Now I'm going to the second website, scopus.com. Please bear with me, it seems to be a bit on the slow side. Yeah, so here it is, scopus.com. Right, now here I can search. Let me just sign in and then I can perform a search. While I'm doing this Scopus, okay, so now I can do that. So I want to perform an author search. So I click on the author search. It takes me to this page and here I want to write. So I want to write the name, say I write my own name. I write my surname, Sharma, and I write my first name, Gagan. And then I search. Something wrong. It seems to be a little slow, but I hope you can all open this website. Please open this website. This website, scimagojr.com. Please open on your computers, scimagojr.com. In the meantime that you open, my Scopus has now opened. So have a look here. Scopus is also not only listing the journals and papers and all, but it is also listing the authors. So for example, with a name Sharma Gagan J, there is someone from the University of Melbourne whose H index is 14. Then there is myself. This is my university name. How many documents, how many papers I have on Scopus? 16 papers. But what is my H index? 6. So out of 16, 6 papers have got 6 or more citations. For this gentleman, out of 23, 14 papers have got 14 or more citations. Then there are other people. You can find anyone you want from here. You can find anyone, just name anyone and you can type the name. If you want me to find out, I can do that. So for example, one of your speakers for a session is Solomon Nathaniel. Let us try to find out. Where is he? Taking a while in the meantime. So I hope you have opened this Simago website. Have you opened it?
Yes, sir.
Now here you write the name of any journal that you know. Write the name of the journal. Any journal that you know. I am writing, for example, the name of a journal, International Journal of Emerging Markets. And I'm pressing enter. You write the name of any journal that you want and press enter. It would bring you here. For example, I have been brought to International Journal of Emerging Markets. I have brought here. So it says that the H index of the journal is 22, which is very good. So what level of H index is good? There is no answering this question. But still, I mean, anything above 10 is considered to be very good. Not very good, but I mean, good. Anything above 10 is good. So International Journal of Emerging Markets is 22. So it's quite good. I go back. I search another journal. Say, I search qualitative search in organizations and management. ROM. I search for qualitative research in organizations and management. Yeah, it has got 13. Right. It will only open you to those journals which are Scopus listed journals. So if you find any journal here, rest assured those are listed in Scopus. I want to find another journal. I want to find sustainability. Sustainability, here it is. It has 53. It's very, very good. Right. You want to find any other journal, so you can find any journal. I hope you have found. Did you find something? Did you try something?
Yes, sir, got it.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good, good, good. Very good. So I hope, guys, you are clear about how to search for Web of Science journals, how to search for Scopus journals, and how to search for those journals on SCImago. Now, ranking systems, because here we talked about citation databases and rankings. So let me come back to the ranking systems now. Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So have a look here that there are 3 ranking systems in social sciences which are prevalent. The first one is Australian Business Deans Council. Australian Business Deans Council, popularly known as ABDC, lists, in fact, ranks the journals into 4 categories: A star, A, B, and C. The best ones they classify as A star, the next best A, next B, next C. Second one, Chartered Association of Business Schools. They have 5 classifications: 4 star, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And finally, Financial Times, they have a list of 50 journals, which they call as the FT50. Which one is better out of those 50, they do not classify. But they simply take 50 journals and list those 50 journals as Financial Times 50 list, FT50 list. Now, till a couple of years back, Australian Business Deans Council was known to be a more reliable ranking system. But today it is not that reliable. It was being used by all B schools, including the IIMs in India, including the Harvards and Cambridges across the world. But then the fact remains that it is a Dean's Council. Australian Business Schools Deans are there on this council. And over the last few years, if you follow Australian business school systems closely, you would realize that over the last few years, most of the deans on the Australian Business Deans Council, in the Australian business schools, have been from the background of IT, technology, etc. Therefore, they have been biased towards IT and technology journals. As a result of which, even the ordinary IT journal, even the ordinary technology journal, you would find those are A star. They have been biased against the finance journals because not many finance people became the deans in Australian B schools in recent times. Therefore, even the better financial markets related journals you would find ranked as B or C. This kind of bias has now become public thanks to the digitalization, thanks to the social media. This has become public now, and therefore many of the B schools are now moving their step back from using ABDC, including the IIMs in India, which are now trying to shift from ABDC to ABS. But there are, even A journals in ABDC, some of those you would find they are one star, one level in ABS. So this is kind of the ranking system. Let me show you. Let me now show you the 3 lists. Let me show you these 3 lists. Let me show you the ABDC list. I hope you can see my computer.
Yes, sir.
So you name a journal and I'll find it here. Tell me the name of any journal that you want.
Sir, Journal of Behavioral Finance.
Journal of Behavioral. So I am only putting Behavio because we don't know whether it says VIOU or Journal of Behavioral Finance. Right. So here it is, Journal of Behavioral Finance. It is published by Taylor and Francis, and it is A journal. It is ranked as A by ABDC. Right. More?
So some participant asked in the chat that Solon management.
What is
just
that?
a minute. California Management Review.
California Management Review. Yeah. California Management Review is here. It is also A. Right. So my point is, this is the ABDC list, and it is freely available. You can go to the website of ABDC and download the list. No problem. And then search the things for yourself. Now I'm showing you the ABS list. This is the ABS list. Please bear with me because it is not. Okay, now it's fine. So here, if you find, say, California Management Review, you see it is 3. It is ranked 3. Right. But if you look at some other journal, say Management Decision, it is ranked 2. Right. So in this way, there are the ranks by these. And finally, if you want me to show you the FT50 list.
So then which one is better, ABS or ABDC?
So I'm coming to that in a while. But have a look at the Financial Times 50 list. These are the 50 journals which are on Financial Times. So you wanted to, some of you asked California Management Review, it's not here. These are alphabetically ordered. So you can see California Management Review is not here. Journal of Behavioral Finance, not here. Right. Journal of Financial Economics is here, JFQA is here, Journal of Business Venturing, Journal of Business Ethics, Journal of Management Studies, Journal of Management. Those are all here, but some of the better journals, which were even A or A star or ABDC or 3 in CABS, are not found in the FT50 list because it is so very rigorous. Now the question, which one is better? So that hardly applies. That applies onto you as an individual. For example, if you ask me as a university person, which one is the one, where would you want to publish? I would say I would want to publish here in the Social Science Citation Index. That's it. Because the government of India and the UGCs, the government institutions, sorry, not government of India, government universities, all of them are considering impact factor as the most important factor. So I don't really care where do I publish, whether it is ranked in ABDC or where is it ranked in CABS or where is it ranked in Financial Times. But most of my collaborators who are working in business schools, they would say we want to go with ABDC or ABS. FT50 is a bit too harsh. So if we can publish in FT50, nothing like it. But to begin with, we have to make sure that the journal is listed in any of these two. And if it is ranked in these, that's even better. So if you ask me, I look at a journal which is listed in Web of Science, and I also see if it is ranked A. So my first criteria is while submitting a paper, I look at ABDC list, A ranked journals, and make sure that these are also listed in the Web of Science. These are 2 criteria which I consider while submitting my papers. Right? So this is probably what I had to present for you. I am open to your questions. Let us unmute our mics. Let's talk for a while. I'm stopping to share my presentation right now. Let's go back to this page. I would want to.
Does this FT list keeps on changing?
Yes, it does keep on changing. Not only FT50, but all of these.
All of
For
these. And
example,
how we are going to obtain this FT list?
you can go to the Financial Times 50. You can search Financial Times 50 rankings.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there were a few questions on the chat also.
Can someone read those out for me?
So yes, one question was just to repeat, what is the meaning of impact factor?
Not a question of repeating because I never defined it before. But what is the impact factor? I can reflect on it right now. So, impact factor is the research impact of a journal. Research impact of a journal means how many people read my research if it gets published in journal, say California Management Review. If the impact factor is say 5, vis-a-vis another journal whose impact factor is 3, it means that my research has more chances of getting read and getting cited if I publish in a journal with a higher impact factor.
Sorry, sir, there is a huge noise.
I know, probably from someone.
It's not clear.
Can people mute their microphones and then unmute it only when required? I hope it is fine now. I hope it is fine now.
Yes,
Sir, I have a question.
Let me reflect upon the previous question again because the voice was probably not clear. Let me answer it again. I was saying that impact, please mute your mics. Yeah. So FT, I was answering the question on impact factor, and I said that impact factor is a measure of the research impact that your research creates. What is the chance of your research making an impact is indexed in the impact factor. So if you publish in a journal with impact factor 10 vis-a-vis a journal with impact factor 3, the journal with impact factor 10 has probably got more chances to make an impact to the research community because it is being read more widely, because people cite the papers published in this journal more widely. So that way, the research which is published in a higher impact factor journal has more chances of getting read and getting cited. One, if this answer is clear to you. Two, any other questions, I'm open.
That means there is a direct relation between the citation of a paper and the impact factor of a journal. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Right, sir. Thank you.
Sir, hello.
Yeah, go on.
Sir, Dr. Mantri this side. So my question is Google Scholar the only way to check your H index, or any other measures are also there to check your H index?
Google Scholar is not the reliable way of checking your H index because what Google Scholar will tell you are a lot of wrong things. For example, if I check my Google Scholar index, I find that my H index is much higher than the H index which is shown on Scopus. So ideally, the best way is to check it on Scopus because Scopus gives you the H index, means the citations of your paper in the journals which are
No voice, sir.
No voice, sir.
I'm sorry, I got disconnected. There was some network issue probably. Is it fine? Can you now see me and hear me?
Yes, sir.
Right. So I was responding to the question about Google Scholar being the only source of H-index, and I was saying that no, it is not the reliable source because of two reasons. One, many of the journals which are actually not indexed on index citation databases, even those are included in Google Scholar. Two, it at times merges the profiles like anything without seeing whether it is your profile or someone else's profile. At times those are merged. So that creates a problem. Therefore, the H-index of Google Scholar is not reliable. You should always go to H-index of Scopus.
So what about the ResearchGate then?
ResearchGate is fine. The challenge with ResearchGate is, in fact, it has its own pros and cons. The pros are that it is basically a network to connect and showcase your research. So it is mainly the social media. It is the LinkedIn for researchers. I can put it this way.
Yes.
Right. So it is something to showcase your research and to find research collaborators. It is more towards that end. It does have a RG score. It gives you a ResearchGate score, but you cannot produce RG score in interviews and say that this is my RG score. No one will consider it. But if you say this is my H-index, people will have to consider it.
Okay.
Meenu has
Sir,
had something to repeat. What do you want me to repeat, Meenu?
Sir,
It was
do we
after the
need
question which was asked by Manpreet since audibility was not there.
I'm not getting you.
It was after the question, whatever you spoke since audibility was not there.
Right. So my question about that was the question about H-index. I think I already repeated that. Right.
Sir, do we need to register on the Scopus to check our H-index?
I don't think you need to register, but my request to Ajay sir is that because there are some UGC guidelines, and the guidelines require at times people to go for the library databases. So if you can procure the Science Direct library database, Scopus registration would come as a complementary feature, and that would be of a lot help for all of you.
Okay.
Right.
Sir, one last question. I-10 index is also displayed when we check our Google Scholar. So
Yeah.
what is that I-10 index?
I-10 index is the index which shows the number of publications of yours which have more than 10 citations.
So some participant asked, what is RG score?
RG score is the ResearchGate score. It depends upon a lot of things. In fact, as I said, RG score is not reliable for producing in formal channels. It's an informal score, but it comprises of a lot of things. For example, RG score includes how much connected you are with your peer researchers,
How many publications are there?
how many people are following your research, how many people you are following, how many people are answering the questions that you are raising on ResearchGate, how many questions you are answering on ResearchGate, how many citations you are getting, how many publications you are having. Yeah. So all those things. It's a mixture of all those things. But as I said, it's not a very formal thing. It's an informal.
Yes, you are right, sir. Actually, on Google Scholar and ResearchGate, the H index vary. So that's why Manpreet ma'am asked which one is better for.
None of those, as I said, none of those, because Google Scholar and
None
Research.
of it. And Scopus is better.
Scopus is the one which is reliable, which you can produce in any of the interviews, which you can write in your job applications, which you can write in your editorial cover letters when you write the cover letter for your paper. So you can always produce the H index of Scopus, but you cannot produce the H index of Google Scholar or, for that matter, ResearchGate.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, hello, sir. This is Pooja Mehta from Aurobindo College itself.
Right.
Sir, my question is the same as Dr. Manpreet has asked. Do we need to register ourselves on Scopus also for getting the H index, or there will be some automatic procedure for that?
So I have said two things about it. One, you can register as an individual, but there are only limited features which you can enjoy, because if you register as such in your own name, you can only get the free profile. But since I have just requested the principal, sir, the institution can procure Science Direct, subscribe to the Science Direct e-library. And with that, Scopus profiles would come for free, which would be good for the university, for the college, as well as for the individuals.
And sir, one more thing.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah,
One
Sanjay.
more thing, sir. How we can register our college in the list of the colleges?
Which colleges?
For example, sir, when I put my paper to the journal, then our college is not in the list of that journal.
Which journal?
Any
Sir,
sir,
it happens with me also many times. They do not show it in the list of the colleges or organizations.
Yeah. So it may at times happen, but then over there, for example, if you want to submit a paper in a journal which is following editorial manager. So if you have to submit your paper on the editorial manager's website, so when you go there, you may not find many of the journals, many of the colleges there, but it is also giving you as an author, it is giving you the authority to add your college. So anyone can add any college. The only thing is that in the default list, it may still not appear, but it may appear as an institution as such. The better way I would advise is that you can always say that your affiliation is Punjab University, but in the department you can say Sri Aurobindo College, because college we are still subscribed to Punjab University. I don't know. I mean, you need to get the go ahead from the principal on that, but this is what I believe. My limited knowledge says that you can say Punjab University, and in the department you can write at the college.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah. Any further questions on this, please?
No, sir.
Sir, I have one question. Hello.
Yeah, Pooja, go on.
Sir, the question is, would you kindly elaborate something on the journal selection methodology? Because it happens many of times that I am citing the papers from that particular journal, and which means that journal is already publishing those kinds of papers. But when I'm sending those, they are just rejecting it at an initial stage, and the only answer is that there is no question on the quality of the manuscript, but it is out of the scope. So I really don't understand how to go with this.
Same question, sir. Same. They initially rejected without even telling that on what grounds the paper is being rejected. Though we have made the required standard about the paper, but without telling anything, without telling any kind of guidelines, the paper is being rejected just by writing the single line about it.
Yeah, that's the default answer that we have saved as editors. But why do they do so? That's an important question, because it has to be taken as extremely seriously. Can you unmute? Can you mute yourselves? Right. So the reason why they usually say that it is out of the scope, while earlier they have published it, one reason usually is that they have recently published something on it and there is already enough literature. So just saying that, just by saying that because they have published something on the same lines before, they will publish now also, does not make a case for it. However, I understand that the editor has no right to say that it is not in the scope, but editor doesn't write the default letter. It is already written. The editor only says that it is a desk reject. So then the default letter says it can be due to any of these reasons. A lot of reasons are listed, and one of those is also that the scope is not matchable. But at the same time, what can I do as a researcher, as a submitter, is that you need to draft your covering letter very carefully. Am I not audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, someone audible.
You are audible, sir.
Okay. So in your covering letter, you need to build a case for yourselves. You need to act smart, and in the covering letter itself, reproduce the scope, that this is the scope of your journal, and we abide by this scope, and our journal, our paper is within the scope of this journal because this is what we are doing. Usually the challenge is that you believe that your paper is in the scope of the journal, but your paper, it takes hours for the editor to find out where exactly are you matching the scope. So it's always good that you write a good covering letter, and in the covering letter you highlight exactly what you have done and how is it matching the scope of the journal.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Any further questions?
Yes, any further questions? I hope all the queries have been addressed by Dr. Gagan. Yes. Anything else you want to ask from Professor Gagan? No.
All right, I think that's it from my side, and we are exactly watching this thing 12 o'clock, so I'm exactly in time. And Burak, who's going to take the afternoon session, he texted me when I was in the session. I sent him the code. I hope we are going to keep the code the same. If we are changing the code, please share it with me around 15 minutes before the next session, which begins at 4:15. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much again.
Yes, sir. Just a minute, sir. Yes, on the behalf of entire Shri Aurobindo College of Commerce and Management, I want to express my gratitude towards Dr. Gagan, who spare his valuable time for our faculty development program. It's an honor to have you, sir. It was indeed a wonderful learning experience. After hearing your lecture, I am sure that everybody gets to know that how individual performance impact along with the 5 parameters of institutional ranking. Among them, RPC is most important. It will help us to beat up the other colleges, and we will surely improve our institution ranking. And at the end of the program, I am sure that the college will be able to achieve main motive behind this faculty development program, as mentioned by Dr. Rajesh sir, that is not to learn only, but to write good research paper through collaborative efforts. So thank you very much, sir. And I also want to thank the director, sir, and the principal, sir, for arranging this wonderful workshop for us. Thank you, Gagan, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. Burak will see you at 4:15, and
Yes,
I'll
sir.
also try to join in for this for the talk to listen to what he has to share with you.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
If there are any further queries about this talk, we can always connect in the WhatsApp group.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
Thank you very much. Bye.